Good morning, everybody. It is 9 a.m. on a Thursday, almost to the weekend. We are here hanging out in the Live Impact studio. I'm Jane Monreal. We thank you for watching WCNC Plus after downloading the app to all of your TVs and letting the people you know, let them know about the WCNC Plus app. We start this morning with some hot weather. And meteorologist Chris Mulcahy, as usual, top here of the show, is joining us in studio, giving us a detailed look at what we can expect today. Let me guess. Hot indices?
Yes, thank you very much. It's been great being on the show. Good day.
Love having you. Good day. All right.
No, of course, there's a lot more to that.
Explain, Lucy.
Yeah, it's hot and humid. I was actually saying earlier here on WCNC Plus, I feel just like a broken record. It's hot and humid with a chance for storms. Mm-hmm. But this time you're just changing the numbers slightly. Speaking of numbers, let's go to this number, 10. 10 days in a row of 90 plus. And you might be thinking, Chris, it's 90 pretty much every day during July. That's not a big stat. You are correct, but it's a different version of the 90s because I actually have a better stat because we've had 30 90-degree days so far this year. Now, that's not unfathomable. I think the record for this time in July is in the 40s, but what I think is most interesting is 27 of the last 28 days, so the last 4 weeks, we have had a 90-plus high temperature. So there's only one day that was in the 80s during that entire stretch, which is significant because that's also factoring in part of June that you do not average the 90s each and every day. Also, we had a very hot end of June. That's where we hit that 100-degree high. But I averaged those 28 days together and actually came to 23.7 degrees. So that means we're roughly averaging about 94 over the last 4 weeks. That's significant because usually the average during that stretch is actually just sub 90. So yeah, it's a little bit more of a fun fact. And our Charlotte top 5, we didn't quite crack it like last year, but through the halfway point of July, since technically the 16th is the exact median, this is now the 7th hottest start to the month of July. So keep that in mind. Yeah, it's just been a crazy stretch of weather, and it's not going to end. I do see one day that maybe could drop down to the 80s, but say if Tuesday, that's the day, if we still hold on to 90 degrees, this will be one of the longest and hottest stretches we've had in Charlotte history. So the 10 doesn't seem really fancy right now, but the 20 might if we can get past Tuesday. All right, but today, 94 degrees, 97, 95, 96. The air temperature's all fine and dandy, but what really matters is how hot we feel. So 94 for today. If you look at kind of, I don't even know what color that is. The light pinkish, where it says 102.
Yeah, the lavender? Or
is it mauve? What's a mauve?
Mauve is a deeper. Oh, okay. It's a shade of mauve. Sandy mauve.
Oh, a sandy mauve?
Sandy
Oh,
mauve.
man, I feel like we're in the paint section.
I was going to say, you're welcome, Sherwin
That's
Williams.
nice. Yeah, I know. So a sandy mauve color over there. That was fun to say, too. 102 is the peak, I think, right around 4 p.m. We're not quite weather alert status then, but the reason why you have 103 or higher as our weather alert threshold is because it's at that point that heat exhaustion becomes likely and heat stroke is now more possible. It's 125 plus that luckily I've never seen a heat index that high in Charlotte history. That's where heat stroke becomes likely. But you also have to factor in something else that we always miss, and this is for any given day, that if it's sunny and you're getting direct sunshine, you are feeling 10 to 15 degrees hotter. So add that onto the 103. That's really where you have those bigger implications that will lead to more rapid dehydration. So you sweat more if you're in the direct sunshine. So keep that in mind. But it's really between 1 and 5 starting on Friday that we are weather alert, because the peak heat indices over the coming days will be about 103 to 105 Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We did include Monday, but right now I think there's going to be more cloud cover, so that likely is going to be dropped off. So primarily Friday and the weekend is where we're going to be feeling the hottest. So a lot of people are going to be doing things at that point. I'm going to show you your 7-day now before I get to the rain chances, because I want to separate them. Our 7-day is showing the slight cool down heading into Tuesday, because I think we're going to have a low pressure system. It's going to bring us more clouds, better chance for rain, and that'll keep us in the lower 90s. That's, I think, the only day that is going to miss out on the 90s, or potentially. But if we get past there, I'm really seeing a long range trend going forward. As far as the hottest that we felt so far this year, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but June 25th, we hit 110 degrees for a heat index. Woof.
Oh.
Even this past Monday, it felt like 103. So if you can recall, I pay attention to this more than most people just because I have to. No, I enjoy it. I'm just kidding. But if you remember how you felt on Monday, if you felt overly uncomfortable, stuff like that, that's the way it's going to feel really today through the weekend. All right, now let's get over to our rain chances. So our rain chances are all over the place, but I think it really just depends where you are. So I want to show you the longer version of this. The next 10 days, you can expect a 20 to 30% chance for rain pretty much any given day during July and pretty much August. This is that typical Florida effect. Florida sees it a lot more, but when it's hot and it's humid, you see those cumulus clouds pop up, and then depending on where it gets the hottest, where it's the most unstable, you have thunderstorms that really start to pop. Sometimes when you have fronts nearby, troughs, anything to give the extra lift, you have more scattered environment, and that's exactly what we're going to see on the back end of the forecast. I think primarily the further north you go, that's where we're going to be seeing the worst of the activity. So I think it's really right around the I-40 corridor. So I'm talking to you around Statesville, Alexander County. That's where we're seeing the biggest thresholds. Hold on one sec. Let's get to our rain chances. Here we go. Okay, so this right here is a unique version of our future cast. Anything in the darker blue represents just a chance for thunderstorms. So guess what? It's pretty much blue for the next month or two. I have not seen it change from that. It actually takes an extraordinary change. You need a cold front to pass us, and cold fronts usually do not pass us this time of year. That's why spring has so many more storms, because you have fluctuations and the atmosphere is going up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. But right now it's pretty much we are stuck in that heat dome. It's much warmer, it's much hotter. So the fronts mainly stay to the north, and those have actually been causing a lot of tornadoes. So as long as you're going to be up and down like that, that leads to more temperature swings. We don't have temperature swings, so we're not seeing those fronts pass us. But to the north, there are some nearby fronts. So that's why the reason why you see that little yellow line, that's where I think you're going to see the strongest storms. So it's a low end for severe storms, and you're going to see that a lot more activity pops up there. As early as 1 o'clock, you will have a developing storm even around the Charlotte area. We saw that yesterday. If you live around Mint Hill, you got dumped on by the early afternoon. It was really from about noon to 2 we first saw the storms, and then we had on and off activity thereafter. But north of that yellow line that I have drawn on there, that's where I think you're seeing the most aggressive behavior. And a lot of those storms are going to be riding some gusty winds. Wouldn't be surprised if we have some severe thunderstorm warnings associated with that. But most likely it's just kind of business as usual pop-up storms for Charlotte. There's always a chance for an isolated storm, but I don't think it's as high of a chance as where I was just showing you. These storms are going to be all over the place. They want to join us for the evening. They want to sit down for dinner in some places. You're even going to have some heavier rain from place to place. And there could be a little bit of localized flooding, just really depending, because we have a lot of training rain, especially further off towards the north in the mountains. But check it out. That's 9 o'clock. And then as late as around 11 to midnight, I'm still seeing some storms around. So if you go to bed earlier in the evening, you could be woken up by one of those big window rattlers, as they're called, that big bolt of lightning that can sometimes produce some really aggressive thunder. We have a temperature inversion, so that really allows the thunder to resonate a lot longer and to sometimes hit a lot harder. So I just letting you know that it's going to chance a little bit later on this evening. As far as your excessive rain impacts, and here, let me backtrack this go. You see the little yellow off towards the north. That's the best chance for some flash flooding because of training storms. Right along the I-40 corridor, still was a chance for storms tomorrow. And then all of us under a low to a moderate threat yet again. You're still seeing a lot of yellows further north you go, because I mentioned those fronts. Those are hanging out there. That is just enough lift to give a better chance for more widespread storms. As far as your next coming rain chances for your Friday, you see yet again noon to 2 right in the foothills of the mountains. This is the more typical setup. Storms first form there because of the higher elevation, and then you have those little popcorn kernels popping up here on the map. Sometimes they can glom together, so I think yet again you are going to have some areas that will have some more widespread activity for the evening. And then Saturday actually is trending a little bit better. You still see storms forming, I think, a little bit later, more like early to mid-afternoon, and then you could have a lingering storm heading into the evening, but a majority of your Saturday is staying dry, which I know excites a lot of people, because who doesn't like that? Back to that 10-day forecast. You see that little spike, 40% on Monday, 60% on Tuesday. I'm not going to bring that down yet, but if this version of what I'm showing you comes to fruition, I might have to. Monday's looking a little bit more aggressive, but there's that front that I was talking about to the north. That's also another reason why we've had such bad flooding events, because there's been these fronts that have been locked to the north that have draped anywhere from Texas up to New York. Those are two spots that have been hit really bad recently. As long as you have those fronts around with the excess amount of moisture that is well above average for this time of year, that leads to flood events. So that's why it's still up in that region, now through Ohio, Kentucky, West Virginia, Pennsylvania. They've been hit the hardest, or could be hit the hardest, over the next couple of days. But what's going to happen here closer to home on Monday and Tuesday, you got this little L that develops, low pressure system. It's planning on going out to the Atlantic, and then it kind of is just like, I'm going to go to the Atlantic. No, I want to go back to the beach. Oh, no, I'm going to go for a swim. Oh, no, I'm going to go back to the beach. It kind of dances along the shoreline. So if this thing went out and sat for an extended period of time, we'd actually have a chance for an investigation, maybe a tropical system. But it looks like it's still going to be a little more land-driven. We've been watching what's been happening down in from Florida and what's heading towards Louisiana. That had a 40% chance for a few days now, but it never went out in the Gulf, so it didn't have a chance to form into anything. Same thing's going to happen with this, but as long as it's nearby, it's going to give a better chance for showers and storms. That's why I had the elevated rain threat on Monday and Tuesday. And then eventually it's going to say goodbye, Carolinas, and drift its way down towards the south. And then we're still going to be rocking those oppressively hot temperatures. So I already showed you the 7-day, but I want to show you the next 10. If you do not drop below 90 degrees on Tuesday, I think we continue this streak for well beyond 10 days, because we're back to the mid to the upper 90s again. I don't see any major swings outside of that. We should be in the lower 70s this time of year. At least that's what climatology says. But truly, it's every 10 years you get new sets of averages. I almost feel like we should do 5 years, because things have obviously changed, because we are now averaging 73 to 76 over the next 10 days. We're already, first out, I showed you, we are the 7th hottest July. If this trend continues and if all this verifies, we'll finish as the within the top 5 for the hottest Julys on record.
Yikes.
So
That's a lot. And I know we're going to be weather alert starting tomorrow because of those triple digit indices.
Yep. We'll bring it up one more time because that's important for us. Here is just a quick look at a little bit more detail. We are weather alert primarily Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Monday's on there for now, but it could be taken off. And the better look, we love to do what's called our wind forecast. It's the when, the impact, and the need. Starting on Friday, 1 to 5 p.m. So each day, when you say, hey, it's a weather alert day, yes, we call it weather alert day, but you need to be primarily weather alert for the heat during the afternoon. But honestly, we've done this before, double weather alert days. Some of those days you also have to watch out for storms. The impacts, heat indices at 103, that's that danger zone. One great thing, have you guys ever watched WCNC Plus? It's a great program.
Sure have.
Yeah, all day.
WCNC app's a great thing to have. Just stay weather alert. I feel foolish when I'm telling grown people to stay hydrated and stuff like that, but it happens all the time. Yeah, you forget. Well, the problem is there's two, I think, periods of this. It's the very beginning that you kind of underestimate things, and then there's when you're in the middle of the season, it was like, oh, this is no big deal. Right. You have to realize that we haven't felt this hot. We did it on Monday, but we haven't felt this hot constant days in a row since late June. So that was about 4 weeks ago almost. So it's at that point, you just have to refresh yourself. Mm-hmm. I've actually fallen victim to this. I think this year's the last 2 years, the first time that I've actually gotten heat exhaustion. Oh, wow. And one time is that you're doing stuff and you push through it. Right. Your body literally firsthand will say, hey, you're thirsty. If you don't obey that, you'll start to feel fatigue. If you push past that, that's where you can start getting lightheaded and you start heading to that point.
The day gets away from you.
It does. Yeah.
Especially like you have a small child. So if you're out and about with the kid, like, you know.
Yeah.
You're going.
Exactly. So and that's the thing. It's very easy to do. There's no shame if it happens. It's just the point if you push it past the fatigue and say, no, I'm fine. And when you start sweating, it's almost too late. So that's why just constant reminders. I feel it's my meteorological duty to say that again. This is something that you expect, but it definitely has been an above average stretch and it'll continue to do so.
All right. So we leave you with this graphic here. The heat impacts. And, of course, we'll remind you all day, and especially tomorrow. Tomorrow's the day we want to keep a heads up.
And I'll be here.
Yes, you will.
As well.
Top of each hour.
So thank you for letting me start off the 9 o'clock show each day. It's always a pleasure.
Always great to have you.
Nice.
Thank
People
you.
want
Appreciate
to tune
it.
in,
I like
get
when
their
we go
weather.
off tangents, but I don't think we have any tangents today.
No National Hot Dog today.
Mm-mm.
All right. Chris Mulcahy in the Live Impact studio. We thank you, as usual, for all of the info that we need for today, and then we'll look forward to tomorrow as well. Time right now is 9:15, and we thank you for downloading the WCNC app, once again, to your Roku, Fire, or Apple TVs and spreading the word. Let your doctor know. Hope to see you, in the lobby as you were there in the waiting room for your appointment. Okay, we get to your local, state, and international and national news, of course. Today, and happening right now, there is a legacy and a protest for Congressman John Lewis on the 5-year anniversary of his passing. It is called Good Trouble, and this is in the form of some neighborly based demonstrations happening in his name. And our Richard Devane covering one of those locations here at the Park Road Shopping Center, bringing you the latest and what to expect. If you see folks out there, this is why they are demonstrating. Let's go to Richard Devane's previously recorded interview on WCNC Plus.
Good morning to all the folks out there in the Plus on this Thursday morning. You mentioned the fact that this is called in honor of John Lewis's death. We can tell you that he was known for his phrase, we want to get in good trouble. And that is pretty much what's going on here today. There is another protest. This one, Charlotte Indivisible, is organized, this particular one, 22 locations throughout the Charlotte area. Folks on all four corners here at Park Road and Woodlawn, as you can see, here protesting, trying to get their message across about what they think is so important. And we've got Dave with us right here as we come over here. Dave, why is it so important for you guys to be out here today? Tell us a little bit, first of all, why you're out here protesting.
Yeah, because we know the majority of Americans don't support the extremist anti-immigration policies that are in place today. We know the majority of Americans don't support the tax cuts for billionaires that cut services for people that really need them, for everyday Americans. And so we're here to stand up and speak out and encourage other people to stand up and speak out. In the spirit of John Lewis, make good trouble. We're here to make good trouble and encourage other people to do the same.
And just we said there are 22 locations I've heard in the Charlotte area alone. Yes. Just do you think this message resonates, and what's the goal of these protests?
Yeah, so the goal is to make sure that we know they resonate, because we're hearing from people and we know from the polls that people don't support what's going on today, but not everybody believes it. The MAGA press makes it seem like they are the majority, and they're not the majority. So we're here to stand up and say, you're not alone, that majority doesn't agree with what's happening right now today, doesn't agree with illegal immigration raids and all the other illegal things that are happening today. So yes, we know it resonates, and we know it makes a difference.
And for people who say I'm hearing a lot of honking since I've been here, folks in support. What do you want people to do if they're in support? What do you do next?
Absolutely. So we want people, if they're so inclined, to come out and join us to protest. We want them to know that using their voice is important. So register to vote. Vote, encourage other people to do the same, call their representatives and speak out and let their opinions be heard, so that people know that we don't support this administration and their policies that are not good for everyday Americans.
And you guys are going to have a news conference later today. Tell us about that at 10:30, 11:30?
11:30 at Pearl Street Park. Yes, a very short news conference with a couple of local speakers, emphasizing why this is about good trouble with John Lewis Memorial Day, and helping to share some of the same questions that you're asking today about why it's important.
Okay, I thank you so much. I know he took a moment to speak to us, said this is a very important message that he says, and the people who assembled here today, this is going on all around Charlotte. They say this is a message that everyone needs to hear. And so we thank you, Dave, so much for your time. And of course, as you heard him say, there will be a news conference held later today at Pearl Park. Of course, we'll have much more on that. As you can see, this all in honor of John Lewis, a man who actually met a few times, and his phrase, good trouble, resonates 5 years after his death. We're right here near the Woodlawn Shopping Center, I should say, at the intersections of Park Road and Woodlawn. Guys, we'll send it back to you.
All right, on the national level, in a rare break with President Trump, some MAGA influencers as well as some Republican lawmakers are calling for the full Epstein files to be released. And with that, a rare break from the president. Alice Barr has the latest from Washington on NBC here on WCNC Plus.
As a rare rift divides MAGA world over the Jeffrey Epstein case, President Trump growing increasingly frustrated with some of his own supporters.
It's all been a big hoax. It's perpetrated by the Democrats, and some stupid Republicans and foolish Republicans fall into the net.
In a lengthy post on social media, disowning supporters he called weaklings for buying into what he terms BS. But while the president blames Democrats, right-wing influencers and some members of his own administration were among the loudest voices perpetuating conspiracy theories, believing that Epstein, who was charged and died by suicide in jail during the first Trump term, did not kill himself and that he left an incriminating client list. Here's FBI Director Kash Patel 2 years ago.
Put on your big boy pants and let us know who the pedophiles are.
President Trump made a campaign promise to release the Epstein files, but last week the Justice Department and FBI contradicted the swirling conspiracies and said they would not release more evidence. Attorney General Pam Bondi has been taking the heat from angered MAGA allies, with some now directed at the president himself.
If you talk about this, I'm going to excommunicate you. Well, you're not the Pope, bro.
Some Republican lawmakers calling for more disclosures.
The Epstein files need to be released.
I would say make it all public.
As President Trump stands by his attorney general.
She says, I gave you all the credible information.
And presses his base to move on. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
And we're going to stay in Washington right now because happening right now, the House leaders are in session. Let's go ahead and listen in here live on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Message of inclusion. You belong, you're valued, and you matter to America. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the member from Arkansas, Mr. Hill, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, good morning. Pursuant to House Resolution 580, I call up the bill H.R. 3633 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar number 134, H.R. 3633, a bill to provide for a system of regulation of offer and sale of digital commodities by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission and for other purposes.
Pursuant to House Resolution 580, In lieu of the amendments in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committees on Agriculture and Financial Services printed in the bill, an amendment in the nature of a substitute consisting of the text of Rules Committee Print 119-6, modified by the amendment printed in Part B of House Report 119 through 199, is adopted, and the bill as amended is considered read. The bill shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided among and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Agriculture or their respective designees, and the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Financial Services or their respective designees. After 1 hour of debate, it shall be in order to consider the further amendment printed in Part C of House Report 119 through 199, if offered by the member designated in the report, which shall be considered read, shall be separately debatable for the time specified in the report, equally divided and controlled by the proponent and an opponent, and shall not be subject to a demand for a division of the question. The gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson, the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Ms. Craig, the gentleman from Arkansas, Mr. Hill, and the gentlewoman from California, Ms. Waters, each will control 15 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Arkansas.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material in this bill in the record.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I rise in strong support this morning of the Clarity Act. We've been here before, Mr. Speaker. Just last year, we passed landmark legislation, FIT 21, with an overwhelming bipartisan majority to apply strong federal standards to digital asset markets. For more than 5 years, our committee has heard from dozens of experts, held numerous roundtables and hearings with market participants of all sizes in all segments of the market to learn more about the emerging digital asset ecosystem. We learned about the value proposition and relevant risks associated with digital assets and the use of blockchain technology. We've heard time and time again from market participants and regulators about the need for clear regulatory guardrails. We've talked about the need to fill those regulatory gaps that have left millions participating in crypto markets vulnerable. In fact, Mr. Speaker, both President Biden in his Executive Order 14067 and President Trump in his Executive Order 14178 identified those market regulatory gaps, asking Congress to act to fill those gaps. And we certainly witnessed in 2022 consumer harm when the Financial Services Committee heard unprecedented testimony from an expert called in to clean up the failed digital asset crypto firm FTX and the mess it left behind. In his words, never had he seen such an utter failure in corporate controls. In its wake, then Chairwoman Waters wisely stated, "We need legislative action to ensure that digital assets entities cannot operate in the shadows outside of robust federal oversight and clear rules of the road." If we needed action then, we certainly need it now, and we risk history repeating itself, and that's why we gather today on the House floor. After years of bipartisan work, numerous iterations, this bill would apply rigorous rules to digital asset firms, prohibiting commingling of customer funds and requiring capital, record-keeping, and conflict of interest mitigation standards. Importantly, the bill recognizes that decentralized finance, or DeFi developers, do not take custody of user assets, nor do they control user assets. Therefore, we should not treat them in the same way that we treat centralized actors who do have custody, who do have control over assets. It's important to note that in an Agriculture Committee hearing, the former General Counsel of FTX USA himself testified, quote, "Had we the regulatory structure provided for in Clarity applied to FTX," close quote, the story would, and he goes on to say, would be almost certainly have been a much different ending.
All right, we are coming up on 9:30 on a Thursday morning. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Jane Monreal. We want to switch from the House session right now to a Senate panel because they are getting ready to vote on federal judge nomination for Emile Beauvais, who defended President Trump. We are expecting potential heated discussion this morning. So let's go ahead and listen in here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
There's no scandal here. Government lawyers aggressively litigating and interpreting court orders isn't misconduct. It's what lawyers do all the time. Concerningly, the minority repeatedly recast discussions of litigation strategy. Now, they crafted litigation strategy as wrongdoing. Even discussions that reflected the government's official litigation positions, some of which prevailed on appeal. These documents then give no reason to delay this nomination. So, let's stick to the facts. The whistleblower alleges misconduct, but 10 days after the key event he described, he signed a brief stating, without qualifications, that, quote, the government has complied with the court orders in this case, end of quote. If he believed the department defied court orders, why sign a brief as an officer of the court saying that it had complied? During the hearing, Mr. Beauvais firmly denied the allegations. He testified under oath, quote, I did not advise any Justice Department attorney to violate court orders, end of quote. Recent public reporting backs this account, his account as well. I'd like to enter into the record, and I have it right here. Months before the whistleblower came forward, his former supervisor wrote in a letter that Mr. Beauvais advised, quote, advised our team that we must avoid a court order holding an upcoming operation to implement the act at all costs, end of quote. This statement confirms Mr. Beauvais advised his team to avoid triggering a court order, not defy one, and that's consistent with his testimony. My staff has also interviewed multiple people who were present for the March 14th meeting described in the whistleblower disclosure. Now we have 4 separate people other than Mr. Beauvais who were present in the meeting telling us the following. There was never any directive to ignore a court order, and each of them left the meeting with the understanding that the Justice Department would aggressively litigate but would follow court orders. To my Democratic colleagues then, you've been accusing each of President nominees of insufficiently respecting the court. I have a few questions. Where was the outrage when Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez said in response to a decision about abortion drug access, quote, I believe the Biden administration should ignore this ruling, end of quote. Where was the indignation when Senator Wyden took to the Senate floor and said, quote, there are moments in history where Americans and their leaders must look at circumstances like this one and say enough. Not let's see how the appeals process plays out, or let's hope Congress can fix this down the road. Just enough. President Biden and the FDA must ignore it, end of quote. Where was the outcry a few weeks ago when Biden appointed Judge Brian Murphy flatly defied a Supreme Court ruling, or when Justice Tolwani ordered the executive branch to violate federal law and spend taxpayers' money in defiance of a law passed by both houses of Congress and signed by the president. And when it comes from their side, just as I've indicated, there's silence. No press releases, no hearings, no letters. So what does that add up to? A double standard, undermining their latest partisan attacks against Mr. Bovee. This Congress alone, Democrats have sent at least 26 letters to 17 agencies or parties demanding records, delays, or investigations into President Trump's nominees. I'm holding them right here in a stack of letters that I've held up already, like clockwork. Just before hearing or a vote, we get another breathless accusation that one of President Trump's nominees needs further investigation. We've seen the slanted stories and reckless accusations before. We've been down this road. It's become routine, this Congress, but it is not new. We all remember what Democrats did to Justice Kavanaugh. As I said during Director Patel's nomination, quote, "This is becoming a pattern, and I will not facilitate a campaign to undermine the results of the election by delaying the consideration of nominees," end of quote. Mr. Bovee has a strong legal background and has served his country honorably. He deserves fair treatment. The vicious partisan attacks and obstruction of nominees that we've seen from Democrats this Congress has to stop. One day, roles will reverse again, and my colleagues will want the same fairness for nominees of their president that they refuse to extend to President Trump's nominees. They should look around the corner and consider that day. Senator Durbin.
Mr. Chairman, the Trump administration's handling of the Jeffrey Epstein case is baffling. It's frustrating the American people, and it's exacerbating the mistrust in the Department of Justice and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. In February, Attorney General Bondi, 17 days into the job, said in a Fox News interview that the Epstein client list was, quote, "sitting on my desk right now to review," end of quote. The White House then staged a major media release of Epstein-related files on February 27th, including preparing binders for conservative influencers and commentators. However, the files released were largely already publicly available. There was nothing new. After intense blowback, Attorney General Bondi went back to Fox News, the mothership, and claimed that a whistleblower, quote, assured her there were more files, and that, quote, New York, Southern District of New York, was sitting on thousands of pages of documents. And she promised on Fox, and I quote, "We will get everything, and the country will see, quote, the full Epstein files." These are quotes from Attorney General Bondi voluntarily appearing on Fox News to explain the situation. For the next 4 months, the Department of Justice and the FBI were silent. What happened during that period? Well, we received information that Attorney General Bondi pressured the FBI to assign, now get this, approximately 1,000 agents in its Information Management Division and hundreds of additional agents from the New York field office to work 24-hour shifts to review and produce more documents on Epstein on an arbitrarily short deadline. These officials were told to, quote, flag any records in which President Trump was mentioned. But after this flurry of activity using tens of thousands of personnel hours in March, it took DOJ and FBI 3 additional months to produce no new documents, but rather an unsigned memorandum on July 7th finding that, quote, this systemic review revealed no incriminating client list. Naturally, after all of the public promises Attorney General Bondi has made, the public is really suspicious of her finding. This suspicion has been exacerbated by public reporting that FBI Director Patel and FBI Deputy Director Bongino disagree with Attorney General Bondi's handling of this matter. Public mistrust has been fed by other claims in the July 7th memorandum. This memorandum included links to surveillance video footage from outside Epstein's cell in the hours leading up to his death. The July 7th memorandum describes one of the videos released as full, raw footage, yet experts who've analyzed it concluded the video was likely modified. The Trump administration has essentially created a new controversy rather than solving one. President Trump is not helping matters at all. Despite his administration continuing making promises about the transparency on Jeffrey Epstein and claims about the existence of records that have not been produced, he is currently telling the country the president is saying this is all, quote, a scam, close quote. Yesterday, President Trump posted on his personal social media site, and I quote, my past supporters have bought into this BS hook, line, and sinker. They haven't learned their lesson, and they probably never will. That's from the president's personal social media. This is the president talking about his own constituents who are concerned about claims his own campaign surrogates and administration have continually raised. President Trump and Attorney General Bondi are directly responsible for all this confusion and mistrust, and they need to be fully transparent, and they should release all of the documents for the public to review as quickly as possible. On another subject, I want to speak on the nomination of Emil Bovee, who should not be seriously considered by the Senate for a lifetime appointment to the federal bench. Lifetime. He led this administration's embarrassing efforts to strike a corrupt bargain with New York City Mayor Eric Adams, and he has been trailed by a history of complaints, long predating his affiliation with President Trump, about his temperament, his poor judgment, and lack of candor before the court. Think of it. We're talking about a judge for life. Attorney General Bondi conveniently did not announce her plan to keep the Epstein files hidden until shortly after our opportunity to question Mr. Bovee under oath about his involvement in this issue had passed. Given his role as Principal Deputy Associate Attorney General, it's hard to believe he wasn't involved in the Epstein cover-up. Senator Booker and I sent him follow-up questions to give him a chance to clear this up. Mr. Bovee refused to respond, but that's not the only issue that's grown more pressing in recent days. Erez Ravini, a career Justice Department attorney who defended the first administration's immigration policies, filed a whistleblower complaint with my office ahead of Mr. Bovee's hearing. The complaint recounted that Mr. Bovee suggested Department of Justice might need to say, quote, F you to federal courts that issued orders that the administration opposed. Remarkably, Mr. Bovee couldn't deny delivering this message. He simply said in questions that Senator Schiff and I propounded to him that he did not recall whether he had used that kind of explicit language. So I asked Mr. Ravini whether he could substantiate his claims. In response, Ravini provided text messages, email exchanges, and other documents corroborating his allegations that Mr. Bovee had waxed poetic about violating court orders and spearheaded efforts to defy court orders and mislead federal courts. Mr. Chairman, despite your opening statement, this gentleman, this whistleblower, Mr. Ravini, has volunteered to appear under oath before this committee We asked you to hold his hearing on this, Mr. Bovee, until that opportunity was taken, and you decided not to. I think that's a mistake. If you question the veracity of Mr. Ravenny, he's ready to stand before you, raise his right hand, take an oath, and testify under oath. What more can you ask about credibility than that? And the Republicans refuse to even consider him. His attempts to account for actions have ranged from absurd to nonsensical. This is Mr. Bovee. But one thing is clear. He has repeatedly excused the conduct of those violent January 6 criminals. Mr. Bovee was the ringleader in an effort to punish federal prosecutors for putting January 6 offenders behind bars. I have this memo ordering their termination right here. Understand what we're talking about. You're a member of the Department of Justice staff. You're a prosecuting attorney. You're given an order to proceed with the prosecution of an individual. You do so. You execute it in a professional and legal way. What happened in this case is if it happened to be a January 6th insurrection mobster, you can be dismissed from the Department of Justice under President Trump. Think about what that says about our Department of Justice. Mr. Bovee was the ringleader in an effort to punish these prosecutors, and in his memo he wrote that the prosecutions of January 6 offenders were, quote, a grave national injustice that's been perpetrated upon the American people. Not the conduct of the mobsters, the conduct of the Department of Justice attorneys who held these insurrectionists responsible for the damage that they did to our Capitol building and the threats to our government. These individuals desecrated our Capitol. Every member of this panel, virtually every member, some are new, every member of this panel who's been here for any period of time will never forget that day as long as they live. I respect this Capitol building as more than just a building. It is a symbol of who in the hell we are. And when these mobsters ran through it, rifled through our desk, posed for pictures, brought in Confederate flags, that was a sad moment in the history of the United States. You would never know it if you listen to Mr. Bovee's recounting of what he believes happened. He has called this a grave national injustice that they would be held accountable for attacking police. Each of you walked into this hearing room today confident that you were safe and secure. And you know why? Because that gentleman sitting in the back of the room is risking his life to make sure that happens. And 100 plus did so on January 6th. Are we to take these policemen for granted? I think that's awful. These individuals, these mobsters, desecrated our Capitol and attacked law enforcement officers who keep us safe to this very moment. To excuse their behavior by claiming that punishing them is a quote, grave injustice is a disgusting insult to law enforcement officials who literally risk their lives to protect members of Congress, staff, and legitimate visitors to this hallowed building. Mr. Bovee further insulted law enforcement by falsely claiming that, quote, heavy-handed.
You've been watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We will get you back out to that Senate panel hearing on the nomination for Emil Bovee in just a few minutes. But at 9:46 this morning, we've been talking about President Trump's tax and spending cut bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now a reality since he signed it into law on July 4th. And this legislation does so many things, right? So we're going to try to cut through some of that. We know the tax cuts, they were set to expire at the end of 2025. So that's been extended. But it also adds an estimated over $3 trillion to the national deficit over the next decade. And with tariffs already making headlines as well, we want to see what North Carolinians and South Carolinians need to do. We're all wondering, where's the money? So we brought in Mark Henry from Alloy Wealth to try to cut through some of the fat here, Mark, and share how this is going to impact our wallets. Mark, thank you for joining us here in the Live Impact studio. First of all,
thanks for having me on. I'm so excited.
Always great to have you. Let's start with the basics. What is the purpose of this act? What were lawmakers trying to accomplish?
Main reason for the act was tax cuts, to make them permanent. Mm-hmm. So that was a big deal. They're set to expire. Most economists believe that would have been devastating we would have seen huge tax increases that could have slowed the economy. This roll that we're on right now, which is a good thing, would have abruptly ended, and a lot of Americans would have been scrambling to figure out what's going to happen with their paycheck because it's already tough enough, and now we got more taxes. So that would have been an issue. So that was the main goal and purpose. And guess what? Check, that one's solved.
Okay, so what of the trade-off then for the $3.3 trillion deficit, but now $4.5 trillion in tax cuts?
That's right. So some people want to worry about we're adding to the deficit, which is already extremely high and stuff. However, by most people's accounts, it really looks like tariffs are working and we're collecting a lot more money than we ever have. If, along with extending these tax cuts, we now continue to create job growth and businesses grow because they know what the taxes are going to be, that could result in a real win, and that's what we're all hoping for.
Look, we're talking about real savings for households. What does that translate to?
Well, so some of the parts of this that really affect people the most would be, let's talk about the younger workers.
Okay.
They got the no tax on tips passed. Now, just when you say no tax on tips, there are things that always go into these things. So there's certain amounts and things like that. But for most all workers that get tips, they are now not going to be taxed. They can report them like they should have been doing, and they will not be taxing them on their tips. Also, overtime bill was passed. So again, up to a certain amount, but now your overtime is really going to help you. So it's going to allow those hourly workers to go be that best employee, get the extra money, and keep it. That's the big thing, keep the extra money.
Right, okay. And then how about, we're talking about new tax breaks, other tax breaks.
Yeah, well, Social Security. So, why can't it just be simple, Jane? Where,
Yes.
Hey, no tax on Social Security. That sounds really good. I love that. You've already paid tax. So for all the seniors, that's what we wanted. Did we get that? Yeah, kind of. So what we got instead of no tax on Social Security is a $6,000 deduction that for workers 65 and older who earn more than $75,000 a year as a person, or up to $150,000 as a couple. So what that means is it's going to cover the tax on your Social Security up to a certain point. When you earn in retirement over $150,000, all of a sudden it's phasing back in, and you are going to start paying tax on Social Security. So this made it a little more complicated, but overall, big win for retired seniors, especially those living on Social Security with a modest income.
Okay, so with the
Big win.
all right, so we're reading it here on text. I always feel like the words are a good visual. So $6,000 deduction. This really for Americans 65 and older,
That's
going to
right.
benefit for this.
Yep.
All right, but they have to make a certain amount.
Have to make less than a certain amount
less than a
before
certain
we
amount.
lose it. That's correct.
Okay, and then
But it's a big deal. It's a good thing.
Absolutely. We talked about offline here about SNAP benefits and how that is affected. People are talking about my benefits are going to be cut. What's the caveat with that?
A lot of people worried about the reductions in Medicare and SNAP spending and stuff. Well, the reality is they want to make sure that people claiming food stamps should be getting them. So in other words, if you're simply getting them and living on them, but you're an able-bodied worker and you're not even trying to work because you're getting enough money without working, that's not going to work anymore. You're going to have to work a certain amount of time to continue to get your benefits, certain number of hours and things like that. And so most people, I think, can get their mind around the idea that, yes, if I can work, I should. And so I don't think that's a big thing. They also talk about the people that potentially could lose Medicare benefits or Medicaid benefits, things like that. Overall, when you really dig into it, it seems like those would be people that maybe shouldn't even be on it at all. So a lot of discussion there, but more to unpack. One of the biggest things, though, not necessarily for North Carolinians and South, because our taxes are not, they seem high enough. Let me be very clear. They seem very high.
Sure.
But in comparison to New York, to California, they are not high. I think everybody could agree with that. So the SALT deduction, when you say SALT, what in the world is that? That's the state and local income tax deduction. It was capped at $10,000. It's been raised to $40,000. So that's going to apply more to moderate, medium or higher household incomes, and people that live in a bigger house that pay a lot of tax. It won't affect as many people in North Carolina because you could have a very modest home in New York and you need that deduction because your taxes may be $20,000-$30,000 on a simple home. So that's a big deal. They wanted that to go for 10 years, to be extended for at least 10 years. They didn't get it. It only went for 5 years. But it's a big win for a lot of the northern states for 5 years.
Okay. Mark, let's talk about tariffs, right?
Yep.
Because that's part of this and how inflation needs to be tempered a little bit, right?
No question.
And so with the tariffs into effect, you said that it is paying for a lot of things already and that there is benefit. But for those naysayers or doubters that this is going to help us in the near future, what do you say to them?
The proof's in the pudding. We haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it completed. We still have many, many nations that have not signed agreements. We have some that are arguing about them, and so it's still in process. But what we have seen so far is they are working. That does not mean when you go and buy something, you're not paying too much. I am not saying that at all, and it is definitely still hard. But I personally see signs of this really starting to work and what it could do for average Americans. And I really believe we're going to get to a place where this is going to be like, okay, not what I thought, this is actually going to work. And I definitely want to throw in, too, the savings account for children being born.
Yes, please.
That's
I was going to ask about
deal.
families and younger families, right?
Because a lot of families need this. You know, our president, dislike, reality is he wants people to have children. He wants to do more for traditional American families that want to have kids. So now we've got a one-time deposit of $1,000 from the federal government for those children born in 24 through 28. That's a big deal. It will also be available to any child who is a U.S. citizen under the age of 8. Parents will be able to contribute to this savings account. It will be invested in a diversified fund that tracks the U.S. stock market. Earnings will grow tax deferred, and qualified withdrawals are taxed as long-term capital gains. So this is a huge thing for young people. It's going to help them save more and give them another reason to have beautiful children.
All right. So for families watching right now or parents that have us on in their office, how should they prepare for these changes that are already in effect? And should there be some tax planning strategies?
There definitely should. So if you're a hourly worker, I think you need to start planning for what that could look like. Make sure you're doing your withholdings correctly. For instance, you may need to adjust them. Now, the goal is, at the end of the year, I always tell people, I would like to see you get a refund of a couple $1,000s or have to pay a couple thousand. Maybe it's $1,000 for some workers. But the reality is you don't want the government to keep too much of your money during the year because that's money you could have put to work paying down debt, student loans, and other things. But you also aren't prepared to write a big check at the end of the year.
That's right.
So evaluate your situation closely. Talk to a qualified person about, hey, I get a lot of tips. I can claim them now. How does that affect my tax and my withholdings? What should I be doing?
Okay. Anything else that we should know about today?
Have confidence and faith. We're going to get through this. It's challenging for a lot of people right now. There's parts of this new big, beautiful bill or big, stupid bill, whatever you want to call it. There's parts of it that I love. There's parts I don't. Imagine that in life.
Right.
But here's the good news. Wake up tomorrow, go crush the day, and put a plan in place to get where you want to be in your life.
Okay, Mark Henry, as always, I feel like you are leaning towards a positive outlook on this situation, though.
Yes, I absolutely am, 100%.
All right. Mark Henry breaking it down for us, this one big, beautiful bill, a little bit of, well, a lot of the impact that we're going to see and already seeing right now. Again, so much to cover with that. So this is just the beginning of so many changes. All right, good planning makes for a good life. Thank you, Mark Henry, for planning on coming out here in the Live Impact studio. I'll see you next time as we come up on 10 a.m. here on Thursday morning. A busy morning for you right now. We're going to get to that House session. The Senate panel session happening right now as they are weighing in on the nomination for federal judge Emil Bovee. You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC+.
And that was something we were actively investigating before he was even being considered as this. Imagine any senator here having somebody put in as a circuit court nominee in their state when there is an active investigation going on about something as serious as the January 6th nominations. That is something that everybody here would consider a violation of process. Now, I understand that there are folks here in good faith who are looking for issues and understanding, but we should all know we have an obligation, a duty, constitutional duty, to advise and consent that requires full and fair consideration. At this moment, there are still unanswered questions surrounding this nominee, evidence and data coming out, at least one whistleblower who's come forward. Moving forward with this vote before this committee has addressed these issues and concerns would undermine the integrity of this process. Mr. Bovey's answers at his hearing and questions for the record raise serious questions as to whether he actually misled this committee, even lied to this committee. Multiple members of this committee have pending requests for critical information regarding Mr. Bovey that must be fulfilled for us to responsibly and thoroughly evaluate this person's qualifications for a lifetime appointment on the federal bench. Let's start with a credible whistleblower who came forward with texts and emails that show that Mr. Bovey said F you to the courts and instructed federal officials to ignore a court order. The whistleblower is a 15-year career lawyer at the DOJ who served in Republican and Democratic administrations and defended the Trump administration's immigration policies during the first term. This is hardly someone that lacks credibility and legitimacy. And he came forward in a climate that we all know. When folks like this come forward, they are targeted with hate, with threats. Yet this person who has such integrity and such experience daringly, courageously stepped forward, and this committee won't even hear from him? I'm hard-pressed to believe that someone who dedicated 15 years to public service would jeopardize their career, the safety of themselves and their families for no reason. After learning that in 2018, members of the Federal Defense Bar in SDNY, many of whom were former prosecutors, took the unprecedented step in 2018 of alerting Mr. Bovey's supervisors of his unethical conduct. These are Democrats and Republicans, former federal prosecutors. Many of my colleagues and I on this committee requested information.
At 10 a.m., you're watching live breaking news here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Jane Monreal. You may have heard here on WCNC Charlotte that former Charlotte Mayor Jennifer Roberts was going to rerun for mayor here in Charlotte, but we are just learning that that is not the case. So we bring in Julie Kay, who is covering this story today. Julie, what happened?
Well, it's a loaded
We're
question.
so puzzled because we were going to have her on later on today here in the Live Impact studio.
Yes, so I'll take you back to a couple days ago. Of course, filing is open for all sorts of elections citywide. The mayor, of course, the big one here in Charlotte, but all city council seats. So this is a big time. I've been staking out pretty much all week at the Board of Elections, watching people come in. And we've gotten some hints as to who is and who isn't going to. But a big surprise was when former Mayor Jennifer Roberts posted a tweet. I have it up. She said this 6 days ago, quote, just saw that Vi Lyles announced she will run for yet another term as mayor, waited until halfway through to announce. Charlotteans should have choices. It's a challenging time for our city and county. Maybe I should sign up to run again, ... So we were all like, is she poking fun?
Teasing?
Is she teasing a run? Right. Or is she testing the waters to see if a run is really something that people want to see? And so I had chatted with her a little bit yesterday, and she said we're going to have a statement with a formal decision either way come tomorrow morning. So that press release came out just a few minutes ago. It's very long, but I do have the piece that announces the decision here. It says, my decision was not easy, but I had decided finally that this is not the time for me to run. She goes on to say that she has too many commitments as is, and it really wouldn't be the best time for her to do so. But she also talked about the reasons she decided to tease this run, pointing to some frustrations within council with the way Charlotte is going right now. One of the pieces she mentioned that we've covered a bunch is those airport workers are not going to get a hearing on the things that they're asking for, that case ordinance for safety, for higher pay, and Mayor Vi Lyles, current mayor, was the tie-breaking vote for that to be a no. And so that's something she brought up as well as to why she would want to run for office again. Interesting that this decision came out this way and at this time, but going forward, Mayor Vilas does still have some challengers, but this does clear up the field a lot for her.
I mean, she said that she got this overwhelming response, unexpected, but at the end of the day, I guess
it wasn't the time.
Not the time.
So.
It's just a way to tease it on Twitter and then be like,
just
never
kidding,
mind.
or yeah. I mean, it does take a lot of thought and consideration when you're bringing your family and your life and to re-enter a run. And what it would take to be the mayor for Charlotte. But
the
interesting.
dot had us,
the dot just have us on the edge of our seats.
Yes.
That was definitely the tease, if not complete tea, if you will. So. And so any other response that we can expect from her?
I'm curious to see. Of course, she's been very involved in the community since she left office in 2017, with all sorts of things. I mean, I've seen her at protests before. She even mentioned the Airport Workers Union. So she is very keyed into the community. She mentioned in here things that she continues to want to be an advocate for, whether in office or not. She mentioned climate leaders, Reimagining America project. I've talked with her before about election integrity and making sure your ballots or your voter IDs are up to date, that kind of thing. So she's been very involved. I don't expect her to take a back seat at all, just in a very different capacity.
Right.
But that's
from a distance, I guess.
Yeah, not in official office. And I mean, to be honest, when you're not in office, you also have the freedom to speak more directly. So that doesn't mean she will be quiet by any means. I'm sure we'll see her quite a bit. But that does, as I said, clear up the race for Vi Lyles. Filing ends tomorrow at noon, so we do expect to see at least one more person enter the mayor's race, but right now it's just Mayor Vi Lyles against this person named Tigress, who's run quite a few times before. And then actually after Mayor Vi Lyles filed yesterday, her Republican challenger withdrew about an hour later. So right now it's just the two of them. We expect activist Gemini Boyd to jump in tomorrow, but at that point, I mean, that's pretty small race for a big position.
And if Ms. Roberts has any inclination to run in the next election, what does this incident do for consideration 2, 3, 4 years from now?
That will be an interesting thing to see as well. I'm curious.
You can only speculate.
Right.
All right. Julie Kay here in the Live Impact studio, bringing us the latest breaking news on Jennifer Roberts deciding not to run, after all, for mayor of Charlotte. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up on 10:05 right now, you are watching Live Impact News on WCNC+. We are covering many things this morning, a lot of discussions and interviews. Our Julie Kay will have more on WCNC Charlotte. The consideration for Emil Bovey for federal judge is still taking place, and it looks like there is some heated discussion right now with the Senate panel. Let's go ahead and listen in live. Back live on Live Impact News on WCNC+.
They have lawyered up, and we better get this thing through as quickly as possible before other people come through. With more time, we would get more answers. With more time, the things that Mr. Bovey has done at the DOJ and throughout his career would come to light, not by elected officials, but by legitimate people whose voices should be heard. Why are we refusing to hear them? Why are we silencing those people? It's going to get harder and harder for my colleagues to ignore the truth, so let's rush these things through. But let's hear a little bit of the truth. Mr. Chairman, I want to submit a number of letters into the record. First, an opposition letter of current and former state and federal prosecutors from around the country. These prosecutors state, quote, Bovey not only refused to hold accountable those who attacked our nation's capital and attempted to block our democratic process on January 6th, but he punished and dismissed career Justice Department employees who investigated and prosecuted that insurrection. Another letter I'd like to submit from almost 1,000 former DOJ prosecutors. This is unprecedented that almost 1,000 former DOJ prosecutors would write this committee and say that they are alarmed, quote, by DOJ's leadership's recent deviations from constitutional principles and institutional guardrails. They identified Mr. Bovey as the leader in this assault. They say it is intolerable to us that anyone who disgraces the Department of Justice would be promoted to one of the highest courts in the land. And the third letter I'd like to submit is from 75 former federal and state judges, including a former Third Circuit judge who was appointed by President Bush. Jurists are writing. This is what they say: elevating a nominee whose record reflects a pattern of misconduct, disregard for lawful authority, and political entanglement would not only compromise the integrity of the courts, it would set a dangerous precedent that judicial power may be wielded in the service of personal fealty rather than constitutional duty. And lastly, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to submit a letter from former federal prosecutors who have collectively more than 450 years of experience trying cases. These former federal prosecutors, 450 of them, urge there is only one way this committee can determine whether Mr. Bovee has violated a court order. It's by hearing the testimony of Mr. Revenet, the whistleblower. Failure to take the time now to do so before voting on this nomination will forever brand this decision as rubber stamping. Mr. Chairman, I make a request, and as I understand the rules of this committee, I have the right to do that. Mr. Revenet witnessed the DOJ leadership plan to defy court orders. I would like to say, ask under Rule 4 of this Rules of the Committee, that the chairman is required to entertain a non-debatable motion to bring a matter before the committee for a vote. I'm making a motion to bring this matter to a vote. I request a roll call of this committee so that the record may show that where each member stands on allowing a whistleblower, an independent prosecutor who worked in Democrat and Republican administrations for 15 years, who courageously stepped forward, who put his life at risk, who is being threatened right now, who felt like it was worth to come forward to speak to this committee. I'd like to request that before voting on this nominee, we would hear from this nominee. I'd like a roll call vote on that according to Rule 4 of this committee.
The clerk will call the roll. Well, before you call the roll, first of all, I do believe that it's not on the agenda what you've requested, and we won't, things that I haven't previewed ahead of time or on the agenda, so I'm going to rule you out of order.
But sir, we can, in all sincerity, we could take the time. We could set the whistleblower coming next week. It would give us more time and then enough time to review all of the things that you're concerned about. The level of gravity of the charges of an independent prosecutor for 15 years who literally has put his life on the line by coming forward. We could do the necessary work to prepare for such a hearing, to hear from this prosecutor.
Before I call on Senator Whitehouse, let me say that you requested put things in the record. We will grant that request. Senator Whitehouse.
Thanks, Chairman. Let me, as to Emile Bovee, let me start with this nominee. Having told a room full of Department of Justice lawyers that if the federal courts didn't back off on restricting unlawful deportations, they would have to tell courts, F you. I hope we can agree that telling courts F you is not an attribute we want in someone seeking to be a judge. We know that he said it because it is so abundantly corroborated in real-time communications among the lawyers present. They talk in texts about the FU comment contemporaneously in that very matter. Prosecutors don't get better corroboration than that. We'd also be on solid ground concluding that he lied about it to us in committee. He said he didn't recall. Really? Didn't recall saying something like that in a Department of Justice meeting surrounded by career lawyers, it's not remotely credible. Lying to our committee also is not a great attribute of a candidate to be a judge. Somehow, he seemed to know that he would get away with it. He also played a bit of verbal dodgem, saying he never instructed anyone to disobey a court order. Correct, but that was not the allegation. He told them to be ready to disobey court orders, to tell courts, F you. Obviously, if you change the statement, you can mislead the committee, but we should demand better than that. Meanwhile, over in the United States District Court of Appeals, there is an order suspending Judge Boasberg's investigation into this matter. He announced a contempt investigation to look into what the hell went on at the Department of Justice with respect to these illegal deportations. Emil Bovee is in the thick of that. He absolutely will be part of that contempt investigation. And 2 Trump judges on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals suspended that investigation. There's a lot of commentary now about how on earth that temporary hours and days suspension has now lasted, what, a month? Perhaps just in time for this committee to ram through this nominee, likely to be a subject of that criminal contempt hearing, while it's delayed. If we are being played that way, with Trump judges delaying a contempt hearing that necessarily involves our nominee so that he can be shoved through, something is really rotten in Denmark. This whole mess around those deportations and his lying to this committee is all consistent with Bovee's lawless character. He helped cook up an improper deal in a criminal case against the mayor of New York, which his own DOJ colleague called a quid pro quo, and an improper offer of immigration enforcement assistance in exchange for a dismissal of his case. That is disgraceful prosecutorial behavior. That colleague, the acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York, then resigned rather than go along with that rotten scheme. And another Trump administration crony also admitted it. Border czar Tom Homan appeared on Fox News with that mayor and said, speaking of the mayor, if he doesn't come through, if he doesn't deliver the immigration support we need, I'll be back in New York City and we won't be sitting on the couch. I'll be in his office up his butt saying, where the hell is the agreement we came to? The agreement. Separately, this nominee tried with acting U.S. Attorney Martin to confect a fake criminal investigation. Tried to confect a fake criminal investigation. Listen to those words. To allow an improper seizure of funds Congress had appropriated and that were obligated and disbursed to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. Career prosecutors pointed out you can't have a criminal investigation with no crime, with no predication, with no basis. And the career criminal chief who'd worked through multiple administrations was forced out of her job for her pains, pointing out that this was a fake criminal investigation, and they went forward with it anyway, Bovee and Martin. These are not minor prosecutorial glitches. These are true violations of the basic oath of a prosecutor. Another principle prosecutors follow is not to publicly disparage subjects of your investigation, both because it's low, it should be beneath a prosecutor, and because longstanding DOJ policy prohibits it. Bovey's official client, the EPA administrator, made repeated public statements accusing the fund and its participants and its administrators. By the way, among its participants was that notorious criminal organization, Habitat for Humanity. Accused them of being corrupt, of being criminal, of engaging in kickbacks, of theft, and of graft. None of that is even remotely appropriate. All of it is in violation of DOJ policy, and we couldn't even get answers about that violation. I ask consent that my June 18, 2025 letter to the Department of Justice on these topics be entered into the record.
Without objection.
These are truly evil abuses of DOJ's powers that this person led. Those are some of the problems with this nominee. Then come the problems with our committee process, in which he was pre-licensed to refuse to answer questions. The committee conceded something Congress has never before conceded, that deliberative process and attorney-client privileges overcome our constitutional powers of oversight and advice and consent. Senator Kennedy and I noted this in our bipartisan report on executive privilege in December of 22. I quote, "Congress maintains that all other components of executive privilege, besides presidential communications, that the executive branch recognizes, including deliberative process and attorney-client privilege," still quoting here, "are not constitutionally grounded and therefore cannot supervene Congress's oversight authority." The majority, having made that astounding reversal and concession, then didn't even follow the rules for assertion of those supposed privileges, neither as to their scope nor as to the process for claiming them. These privileges need to be asserted. It's notable that this nominee never actually asserted them. He likely realized that they don't, in fact, actually pertain, and he didn't want to get caught out in the legal error of asserting a non-pertinent privilege. Plus, he didn't have to, since his non-answers were blessed in advance by the majority. Instead, he hid behind vague claims, not privilege assertions, vague claims of inappropriateness or things not being public or failures to recall. Just to remind, attorney-client privilege and deliberative process privilege, even if they pertained here, do not apply to administrative decisions within a department, and deliberative process, indeed any executive privilege, does not apply where the allegation is misconduct. Again, from my report with Senator Kennedy, quoting the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, "The privilege disappears altogether when there is any reason to believe government misconduct occurred." We have enormous reason to believe that this individual, now a nominee, participated in government misconduct. The only executive privilege that Congress does recognize requires some proximity to the president. It is not applicable in ordinary agency administration, and the president must invoke it according to the Reagan memo. None of that took place under the blanket authorization to refuse to answer. We are dealing here with the nominee's attempts from a very high position in the Department of Justice to cook up a fake criminal investigation and to use an existing criminal case for political leverage over an elected official with too many accompanying violations of DOJ rules and practices to count. And we can't even get answers? The result was a hearing that more resembled a rackets hearing from The Godfather than a nomination hearing for a Circuit Court of Appeals judgeship. Throw in the Attorney General and Deputy showing up in person to give Republicans in this committee the eyeball, and the resemblance gets worse. Hearing by hearing month by month, the bar is lowered and lowered and lowered for our constitutional advice and consent oversight. Now to the point where a witness can say, I don't recall, and it would be inappropriate, and that's not public, to any question, no matter how bad the behavior, no matter how good the corroboration, and get away with it. Even with multiple credible, backstopped allegations of prosecutive misconduct by this individual before us, we are become a partisan rubber stamp. Neither the committee nor the judiciary is well served by our learned and servile helplessness. I yield back.
I will now go to voting because we have competing markups and other committees and people have to leave here soon. We'll go to Bovey's nomination. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, point of personal privilege.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, according to Rule 4 of the committee, we have the right to continue to debate this nomination.
No.
I'm invoking Rule 4 of the committee. We have the right to debate this nomination.
You're out of order.
I'm seconding
Mr.
Senator
Chairman?
Booker's demand for a vote on his request to hear from the whistleblower.
Mr. Chairman, you should at least acknowledge my Rule 4 point of order.
You're out of order.
I don't understand this. What are you afraid of about even debating this,
by proxy.
putting things on the record, hearing from every senator? Dear God, that's what our obligations are. It's to state our reasons for debate. At least address the Rule 4 point of order that we're calling. There's no need to rush this. What are we afraid of? We're not pressing for the 2-hour rule like you all did when you were in the minority. We're simply asking for a credible amount of time to air our concerns before the vote. We respect each other in this committee. We respect the understanding that we have things to say. But yet we're doing this in a way that makes no sense to me. And it makes no sense to me because we're not trying to do things like force the committee to close or force a 2-hour rule. This is about understanding that people on this side have a responsibility to state their issues.
You're out of order?
Mr. Sir, you could call me out of order because this is out of order. This undermines the basic decency of this committee. Yes, maybe overrule a Rule 4, but at least address the Rule 4 point of order that senators were elected to debate issues and debate nominees. This is absolutely insane. What is the rush? Sir, I am interrupting because you're interrupting a regular point of order. At least address my point of order. I have the right to do that by the rules of this committee. If you want to overrule the rules of committee, then do so. But this is not in any way in order. You are obligated to address a point of order according to the rules of this committee. You could overrule me by a Senate vote. You're violating your own rules. The parliamentarian has been clear about this. The parliamentarian has been clear. You could overrule the point of order I'm doing, but you have to follow the precedents and procedures of this committee. This is outrageous that you're not allowing senators to have their fair say before a controversial nominee is being done. This is unbelievable. This is unjust. This is wrong. It is the further deterioration of this committee's integrity. With a person like this, what are you afraid of? Are you afraid of hearing from Chris Coons? From hearing from one of my colleagues? From hearing from Adam Schiff? What is the fear here? Have at least the decency to have a vote on my point of order regarding Rule 4. I have respect for you, Mr. Chairman. We've served together for more than a decade, but this is outrageous. This is unacceptable. This is wrong. It is wrong. And why? Why? What is the rush to take another half hour to listen to people? What is the rush? What are we afraid of, Mr. Chairman? What are we afraid of? I do not understand why senators can't debate a nominee as we've done when both sides have been in the majority to take the time. What is the thing that you are so afraid of from hearing from my Senate colleagues? This is a violation of the precedents of this committee. We're not trying some stunt here to try to force a 2-hour rule like you all did when you were in the minority. We just want to be heard before a controversial vote. Sir, this is wrong, and you know it. You are a person of integrity. How could you be doing this? At least have a vote on my point of order. Sir, with all appeals to your decency, with all appeals to your integrity, with all appeals to past jurisdiction and past precedent, why are you doing this? This is outrageous.
This is a kangaroo court. That's all we have here,
This
Mr.
is
Chairman.
wrong. To violate your own rules without going by the mandates of the parliamentarian. This is unbelievable. There's a way to do this. If you want to force this through, if you want to ram this through, there's a way to do it in accordance to the rules as spelled out by the parliamentarian. It is simple. It is clear. There's a pathway to achieve what you're trying to achieve. But, sir, this lacks decency. It lacks decorum. It shows that you do not want to simply hear from your colleagues. This is absolutely wrong. And, sir, this is to me one of those moments where we are not showing common respect for each other on both sides. I have sat here when we were in the majority and listened to my colleagues' arguments, listened to their passionate statements, and then we voted. This is not that. This is us simply trying to rush through one of the most controversial nominees we've had under this presidential administration. Sir, God bless America. You are a good man. You are a decent man. Why are you doing this? What is Donald Trump saying to you that are making you do something which is violating the decorum of this committee, the rules of this committee, the decency and the respect that we have each other to at least hear each other out? I've sat through so many long speeches of my colleagues, heard their objections, listened with sincerity to try to see what their arguments are. But we are not doing that. Sir, this is wrong, and you know it. There are some people on this committee who are the least firebrand people, and they've walked out. Some of the least controversial people in the Senate, some of the people that worked the hardest to find bipartisan common ground have just walked out of this committee. And you don't even seem to care, but I know you do. I know your heart, Senator Grassley. This is wrong. I know the kind of person you are, and you know this is wrong. This is not necessary. What is another half an hour to allow senators to be heard? It's what the Constitution mandates. It's the ideals of the United States Senate. The world's most deliberative body should take a decent amount of time to deliberate. But here we're not doing that. Here we are jamming this through with some sense of false urgency. It's one thing not to hear from whistleblowers. It's another thing not to hold another hearing, but to not even allow my colleagues to have their moment to speak against this justice. It's just wrong. And I know you know this. I know you know this. The only time this rule has ever been overturned by both parties was done when one minority was trying to pull some stunt to stop the committee from hearing. This is not that. This is not the 2-hour rule. This is a basic element of the ideals of this committee, sir. It is the basic understanding of having debate and deliberation. It's a basic understanding of we can listen to each other even if we disagree, that we should have time and space and a forum to listen. Sir, this is just wrong in every way. It is wrong in every single way. This is an abuse of power. It's an undermining of the well-being and the integrity of this Senate and this committee that I for so long I've been so honored to be a part of. This is wrong, sir, and I join with my colleagues in leaving. This is a sham.
Vote.
This is wrong.
We'll report.
We're better than this.
Pratt to the floor. Now we'll have to vote on these nominees for U.S. Attorney because we don't have enough people on the other side, so we can't do it by voice vote. So the clerk will call the roll on Kurt Alme.
Mr. Graham.
Aye.
You are watching live the committee meeting to vote for Emil Bovee as federal judge. And as you can see, and as we expected, some heated discussion and the debate there from the floor from the Senate Judiciary Committee. It is 10:31 on Live Impact News. We continue to listen in.
Mr. Coons, Mr. Blumenthal, Ms. Hirono, Mr. Booker, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Welch, Mr. Schiff, Chairman Grassley.
Aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 12.
Okay, that Kurt Alme favorably voted will be reported to the floor. Now we'll vote on Leslie Woods Murphy. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Cornyn.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. Hawley.
Aye.
Mr. Tillis.
Aye.
Mr. Kennedy.
Aye by proxy.
Mrs. Blackburn. Aye. Mr. Schmidt. Aye. Mrs. Britt. Aye. Mrs. Moody. Aye. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Whitehouse. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Coons. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Booker. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Welch. Mr. Schiff. Chairman Grassley.
Aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 12.
Yeah, the ayes have it. Nomination would be favorably reported. Now we go to nominee for Jean Perrell. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Graham.
Aye.
Mr. Cornyn.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr.
Aye.
Cruz. Mr. Hawley. Mr. Tillis.
Aye.
Mr. Kennedy.
Aye by proxy.
Mrs. Blackburn. Aye. Mr. Schmidt.
Aye.
Mrs. Britt. Aye. Mrs. Moody. Aye. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Whitehouse. Mrs. Klobuchar. Mr. Coons. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Booker. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Welch. Mr. Schiff. Chairman Grassley.
Aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 12.
The nomination will be favorably reported to the floor. The last one is, no, I'm sorry. Eric Siebert. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Graham.
Aye.
Mr. Cornyn.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Cruz. Mr. Hawley.
Aye.
Mr. Tillis. Mr. Kennedy.
Proxy. Oh, aye by proxy.
Mrs. Blackburn. Aye. Mr. Schmidt.
Aye.
Mrs. Britt. Aye. Mrs. Moody. Aye. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Whitehouse. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Coons. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Booker. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Welch. Mr. Schiff. Chairman Grassley.
Aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 12.
The ayes have it. Nomination will be favorably reported. Now Kurt Wall for Middle District of Louisiana. Call the roll.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Cornyn.
Aye.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Cruz.
Aye.
Mr. Hawley.
Aye.
Mr. Tillis.
Aye.
Mr. Kennedy.
Aye by proxy.
Mrs. Blackburn. Aye. Mr. Schmidt.
Aye.
Mrs. Britt. Aye. Mrs. Moody. Aye. Mr. Durbin. Mr. Whitehouse. Ms. Klobuchar. Mr. Coons. Mr. Blumenthal. Ms. Hirono. Mr. Booker. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Welch. Mr. Schiff. Chairman Grassley.
Aye.
On this vote, the ayes are 12.
That'll be favorably reported. Before you disband, I'd like to have everybody that's here know that what happened here today is no different than when Democrats cut off debate on Judge Kashubi and Judge Lee against Republican protests to continue debate in November of 2023. In that markup, Senator Blackburn and others were not offered an opportunity to speak on those nominees, and Chairman Durbin ordered the vote, just like the obstruction we saw here. I ordered the vote this time. So if you'll spread that word that this is not unprecedented, either the actions of the minority walking away or what we did here as a majority, it's happened before. And we have to move things along. And I thank everybody for participating. Meeting adjourned.
All right, you are watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus at 10:37. Meeting adjourned there. A number of measures and votes to pass. As you can see, though, that the Dems walked out on trying to pass Emil Bovee for federal judge. Happening right now is a press conference for CMPD. They're talking about the mid-year crime report. Let's go ahead and listen in here live on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Among those many interactions, one of our proactive initiatives that began in October of last year, which continues to have a positive impact on crime reduction, is the Coordinated Overlap Response Effort, or what we call CORE 13. CORE 13 involves using officers in 2 squads assembled from the patrol divisions across our city. These officers are used to address both persistent and acute crime issues during peak evening overlap staffing. In the first 6 months of 2025, CORE 13 deployments have been responsible for 1,219 traffic stops, 51 arrests, and 25 seized firearms. On April 2nd, an example of their work was while officers were conducting patrols in the North Tryon Street corridor when they observed a suspicious vehicle parked illegally. Their attention to detail and investigative work led to 2 arrests, the recovery of 2 stolen firearms, suspected cocaine, and cash. This is just one example of the daily impact CORE 13 is having to disrupt violent crime before it happens. I want the community to know that CMPD is doing the work. Our officers and detectives are dedicated and diligent in their effort to keep our communities safe. I'm incredibly proud of our patrol officers who are in our neighborhoods daily, engaging with the community, observing suspicious activity, and providing our detectives with crucial information needed to solve cases and arrest violent offenders. The progress we're making in reducing violent crime comes with strong, ongoing teamwork. We're asking the community to continue being a part of that effort by reporting anything suspicious and sharing information that could help solve crimes. Any tips can be shared anonymously through Charlotte Crime Stoppers at 704-334-1600, through the P3 app, or online at charlottecrimestoppers.com. Working together, we can continue to make a real difference in helping to keep Charlotte safe and continue moving in the right direction that we all desire for our city. Now I'd like to invite Captain Michael Carter to the podium to walk through the department's focused efforts to address property crime across Charlotte. Captain Carter.
Thanks, Chief. My name is Michael Carter. I represent the men and women who serve and work in Steel Creek Division here at CMPD. As you've already heard today, overall property crime is down 5% from January through June 2025. That's this year. But behind the numbers, we're seeing a troubling pattern. Some of these crimes, particularly larceny from autos, are up 3% this year, being committed by younger offenders in our community. In the first quarter of 2024, to address this issue, our department created the Juvenile Accountability and Diversion Empowerment Team, otherwise known as JADE. This team focuses on juvenile investigations, monitors at-risk youth, and works to break the cycle of repeat offending. So far this year, JADE has been responsible for 97 arrests and the seizure of 72 firearms. Our department isn't just focused on making arrests. We are committed to making a difference in the lives of these young people. That's why our JADE officers continue to make home visits to families of these at-risk youth to provide educational resources aimed at prevention and support. So far this year, this team has made 84 home visits. These allow officers an opportunity to build meaningful relationships with the families, fostering trust and support. I'm also encouraged to report the juvenile arrests overall have declined by 16% this year, an early indication that these efforts may be helping. In June, we shared the case of a 15-year-old who had been arrested a total of 8 times by JADE and has additional arrests in other jurisdictions throughout, agencies throughout the jurisdiction. From March 31st through June 5th, this one juvenile racked up 275 charges from 8 local jurisdictions. Over 100 of these charges were for breaking and entering into vehicles and larceny of autos. Think about that for a moment. 275 charges in less than 3 months. If that doesn't alarm you, it should. Our community should be outraged and calling for real solutions and accountability. Thanks to the diligent work of our JADE officers, CNPD is making progress in deterring some of the youth crime and holding violent offenders, even young ones, accountable. While we're seeing progress in our crime statistics overall, property crimes like commercial burglaries show us where targeted attention can make a difference. During the first 2 quarters of this year, burglaries rose by 7%, including an 18% increase in commercial cases. For context, it's important to understand that most of these cases involve repeat offenders. One repeat offender I'll talk about today, Mitchell Morrison, is a convicted felon and was involved in a series of storage unit break-ins in the University City Division, resulting in more than 27 warrants and tens of thousands of dollars in stolen property. Although our officers have worked to recover the stolen property and arrested Morrison multiple times, repeat offenders are often released and able to continue committing crimes in the community. Another contributing factor to the rise in commercial burglaries is how repeat offenders are charged under current laws. When an individual has been banned from a commercial location for shoplifting, for example, returns to shoplift again, officers will show up and make the arrest, charging the subject with commercial burglary. The person committing the crime is ultimately responsible for their actions, but others must step up to ensure that they are held accountable. This includes their families, friends, judges, and agencies that focus on juvenile justice issues. As I wrap up, I would like to remind the citizens of Charlotte to take simple precautions, such as locking their vehicles and securing their valuables, to help reduce these property crimes in our jurisdiction. We also recommend taking advantage of Connect Charlotte, which allows residents and businesses to register cameras and partner with us, to enhance community safety. Please visit visit connectcharlotte.org for more information. Now I would like to introduce Sergeant Kevin Wiggins, who will be speaking on a relevant and hot topic, street takeovers and auto thefts. Sergeant.
Thank you, Captain. Good morning, everybody. Once again, my name is Sergeant Wiggins, and I'm currently assigned to the Special Events Division here at CNPD. I oversee the Street Takeover Task Force unit here at CNPD. Most of you have seen the many street takeover videos on social media showcasing illegal, reckless, and incredibly dangerous car stunts. These stunts involve large crowds standing in the street within inches of fast-moving vehicles that are doing donuts, drifting, and burnouts. This is not only a safety hazard for those involved, but also a significant nuisance to our community, causing traffic congestion, delays, and damage to property. In recent years, thanks to the part new legislation, we have a greater tools to crack down on these gatherings. For example, participating in takeovers can result in a Class A1 misdemeanor for the first offense and a Class H felony for a second offense within 24 months. Additionally, heavy fines are levied ranging from $1,000 and a bond being placed on a vehicle that is seized for street takeover. The bond that is placed on that vehicle is twice the value of that vehicle. For anyone who hasn't gotten the message yet, consider this a warning. If you come to Charlotte for a street takeover, we will hold you accountable and your vehicle will be impounded. In the first 2 quarters of 2025, CNPD has responded to 25 organized street takeover events. From those 25 events, officers have arrested 7 individuals, issued 84 citations, seized 23 vehicles, 6 firearms, and have signed out 111 warrants. We will continue to track important leads to stay ahead of planned events and take enforcement action. I also want to clear up a common misconception about vehicle seizures that CNPD is involved in. CNPD does not financially benefit from seizing vehicles. State law mandates the vehicle seizure process. If a defendant is found guilty, the vehicle is auctioned by the Mecklenburg County Sheriff's Office and those funds go to the county school board. If charges are reduced or dismissed, the vehicle is returned to the owner. The only time CNPD takes ownership is in rare cases, either as part of a plea deal or the vehicle is modified to a point where it cannot be auctioned back out to the public. The bottom line is CNPD is focused on safety and accountability, not profit. That's why we continue to rely on your help to keep our streets safe. If you witness or have information about street takeovers, please call 911 and report it to us immediately. Your vigilance can prevent dangerous situations and protect our community. Another vehicle-related crime worth highlighting are auto thefts, which are down 22% so far this year. thanks in large part to the continued efforts of our stolen car and recovery enforcement team. Just over 2 years ago, CMPD formed this team, otherwise known as Scarlet. This year alone, the team has made 102 arrests, recovered 85 stolen vehicles valued at over $7 million, and has seized 24 firearms. This is commendable work, not only protecting property owners, but also holding offenders accountable and removing dangerous weapons and substances from the streets of Charlotte. This morning so far, we've covered a lot of ground on crime statistics and the reasons behind them, but now we'd like to talk about a program CMPD developed a few years ago to improve customer service throughout CMPD. Sergeant Jeffrey Joseph will share key milestones and updates on CMPD service. Sergeant.
Thank you, Sergeant Wiggins. Good morning. I'm Sergeant Jeffrey Joseph, currently assigned to the Police and Fire Training Academy as a recruit training sergeant. Today, I'm here to talk to you about our training program called CMPD Serves. I'm proud to announce that we are now celebrating our 5-year anniversary of this innovative training program. CMPD Serves was developed in response to the 2020 civil rights demonstration across the country. We became the first law enforcement agency to implement a customer service strategic program. We have pioneered this training, and several other departments nationwide have taken interest. At its core, CMPD Serves is about promoting effective, empathetic, and respectful interactions. Interactions that truly help build trust within our community and strengthen that relationship. An internal survey was conducted in 2024, which showed that 70% of our employees felt that they have applied knowledge they've learned during this training in their daily duties. The program was recently recognized nationally by the Business Intelligence Group, who named CMPD as the 2025 Organization of the Year for Customer Service Excellence. Since its launch, the program has led to measurable improvements. From 2023 to 2024, use of force incidents has dropped by 24% and occurred in less than 1% of all police interactions. During that same time period, external complaints decreased by 61%, internal complaints went down by 39%, and officer-involved shootings declined by 43%. These outcomes not only reflect just policy shifts, but also a cultural commitment to service and accountability by our officers within this department. One example of the reinforcement and culture shift is an award that we award our employees called Acts of Excellence. An Acts of Excellence is a certificate that we issue to employees who go above and beyond the call of duty. As our dedicated employees perform impactful work each day, these awards provide well-deserved positive reinforcement. Nominations for these awards come from reviewing body-worn camera footage, internal nomination from colleagues, as well as supervisors, and letters from the community. So far this year, I'm pleased to announce that we have presented 137 Acts of Excellence. We would like to invite you to experience the positive change CMPD Serves have brought to our community. Now I'd like to invite Lieutenant Crystal Fletcher back to the podium to conclude this briefing.
That concludes the speaker portion of our press conference. Now I would like to invite all of the speakers back up to the podium, and we will open it up for a few questions. Yes.
I was wondering if there's any updates on the drone pilot program that was mentioned a couple of press conferences ago.
We don't have any updates for you today, but we will follow up with you, and any information that we have, we will release from the Public Affairs Division.
WCMT. I know drive-by shootings or shootings into dwellings was a big issue in the past and so forth, and then you guys had the award or reward system where if someone I think made some kind of was able to help get rid of the arrest and so forth. There was like a $500 or something reward and so forth. Any updates on that? Is shooting into dwellings and drive-by shootings? I know I've been looking at the significant reports and so forth, and there's just I've been seeing so many continued drive-by shootings, shootings into dwellings. Is that a continued issue? Is there any updates on that?
Well, I can tell you, and I know that we're going to be sharing some juvenile data, and a lot of times that previously has been our focus, and that fortunately that number is down. What I'll tell you is we continue to use a collaborative approach. So Captain Carter talked about our JADE program. When we have previously identified offenders, we're trying to work with those individuals and their families to avail themselves of resources, which allows them to make better choices. We have a lot of collaboration between our patrol units, our Special Investigations Bureau detectives, and our Patrol Division investigators to focus on those. We use the resources we have, fortunately, in our own crime laboratory to be able to tie those cases together, which, of course, makes a much more effective package for the District Attorney's Office to prosecute those cases.
Well, while we're talking about Jade, can you touch on the scope of that unit? How many officers are assigned to that? Are they full-time assigned to that, or do they have other duties as well, that kind of thing?
So those officers come from several of our patrol divisions. That is their full-time tasking. The unit is split up into two efforts. So part of the unit is more investigative in nature, as far as trying to solve crimes that we've tied back to juvenile offenders. And then we have officers whose focus is on doing the home visits that Captain Carter referenced, trying to outreach to the families, trying to make connections with them so we can help them access opportunities that fortunately exist in our city, so that the families and identified youth can choose a better path, can make better choices for themselves and their families.
And how many officers were part of that unit?
You know what current is? 8 officers.
8
8 officers and 2 sergeants currently.
And based off the results we saw here, is there a plan to expand that in coming years or to grow that?
So we constantly evaluate staffing levels, but of course Jade doesn't work in a vacuum. There's a lot of overlap between the work done by our Jade officers and our crime gun suppression team detectives and our violent crime apprehension team detectives, and then of course investigators across various units. So much like every part of CMPD, we don't work in a vacuum, and so a lot of the collaboration generates leads from one area. You might have an investigation going on in Criminal Investigations Bureau where there may be or possibly be a juvenile offender, and one of the Jade officers has a previous relationship or familiarity based on previous investigation, and then they collaborate on that. So although the unit is a specified size, they're working with units across the entire city.
So you've mentioned a couple of times that repeat offenders are committing a lot of these crimes that we're seeing here. Over the past couple of months, CMPD has had some public complaints about judges releasing juveniles too early or setting bonds too low for people that commit violent crimes. Does that continue to be a frustration for the department?
Well, I think we try and work with all of our criminal justice partners to ensure that they have the complete palette of information to make the best decisions for the community. So we will continue to conduct investigations to share that information with our partners in the District Attorney's Office and with the judges that we appear before, and that information, better leads our judicial officials to make the decisions that we would like to see for our community.
Charlotte, Alexandria Sands. I'm wondering if you could take some time to talk about Uptown or the Central Division. I think a lot of people are wondering right now if Uptown is safe to go to. So I'm curious, what would your message be to residents who are wondering that? What progress are you guys making? I know that you're working with Center City Partners. And then also, do you guys have any data comparing this time period to last time period, specifically for Central Division and violent crime?
So, I'll tell you a couple things. So, one of the things I touched on earlier in the week is there is, certainly busier parts of the week. So you're going Thursday through the weekend. There is nowhere in the city that you can go where you will find more officers per square block than you will in the Central Division. And that's a combination of on-duty units, it's off-duty units. They're one of the divisions that we have that has the fortune to have a full-time bike unit. During the kind of peak restaurant club hours during the weekend, you will see an increase in officers in our congested business district, entertainment district, with units that they've brought together from across the Southeast service area. So I think people will see the presence that they've always seen, but they may notice some increased presence in the areas where there's a higher concentrations of bars and restaurants and nightclubs. We also continue to partner with business owners and look for strategies that they can implement Some of it's a matter of controlling traffic flow or controlling pedestrian access to create secure areas for their patrons. There's also regular collaboration with our detectives in the alcohol beverage control unit. So that collaboration is going to continue, but I think folks who, whether you live uptown or you visit uptown regularly to avail yourself of the resources there, I think you will see a very reassuring and robust CMPD presence.
Are you guys able to make data available on that?
Yeah, we'll have PIO follow up with you on the specifics.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
One last question?
Sorry, just for clarity real quick. You said there will be an increase in, like there will be additional patrol in response to the uptown?
So this is a strategy that has been used previously. It's not, it's not new. And again, because you're talking about in the uptown portion of Central Division that you have such a high concentration of bars, restaurants, and nightclubs. And so again, with any assessment we make, it's a resource allocation issue. So you always see our bike units up there. You always see our foot patrol officers up there. And so in addition to strategies like Operation Heartbeat that we talked about with the blue lights on, or Core 13 being in that area among other neighborhoods across the city, you will see a focus on the entertainment district, which Central Division has employed previously.
Okay, I'm sorry, just for my clarity, are you saying like because this isn't a new thing, people might notice that there is an increase because there's so much attention on the police?
Well, I think anytime, and it's unfortunate, but anytime an incident occurs, I think people's awareness changes. So if there's not an incident, you could walk 7 blocks down Tryon Street and not notice how many police officers there are. Now, we know because we're staffing the patrol shifts on a daily basis. We know because we know what businesses request off-duty officer assistance. But if your focus has nothing to do with our presence, then you may not see officers. And you could say, like, I didn't see any officers. And then now you become more keenly aware. But what I will tell you is, and I've been here for over 20 years, I've never gone uptown and not seen a robust presence, at the end of the week and over the weekend.
You are watching live right now the CMPD briefing out of Uptown Charlotte. Whatever is left as they take questions from media is running on our secondary channel here on WCNC Plus. Charlotte Today is up next, and I'll be back here in the Live Impact studio at 12:30. Have a great day.